We present 3D in action, a novel method for understanding human actions from 3D point cloud sequences. Let's start with a short example. If you were given this input point cloud, can you tell what action this person is performing? Tricky, right? Let's introduce another frame. Can you tell the action now? Still tricky, but we can make some educated guesses. Let's introduce one more frame. Can you tell the action now? Here is the full sequence. What this short exercise demonstrates is that temporal information is very important. Given a single frame, we could easily tell that it is a person, maybe the biological gender of the person. However, the action they were performing became obvious the more frames we had available. So, more formally, given a sequence of point cloud frames, we want to predict the action for each frame in the sequence. The key idea in this work is to extract local temporal point patches that we name T-patches and extract features that encode geometric and temporal information into a unified spatio-temporal representation. First, let's give a formal and general definition for T-patches. A T-patch, PQ, is a sequence of point sets indexed by a query point Q. The T-patch points jointly move in time. The movement is defined by a point-wise mapping function phi that maps the points between patches in consecutive frames. There are quite a few interesting challenges here, in particular the mapping function, but we show that using a naive k-nearest neighbors search between consecutive frames can yield state-of-the-art results. Let's have a closer look at the construction of T-patches. First, for every T-patch, we select a query point in the first frame and find its nearest neighbors for the same frame. Then, we find the nearest neighbors in the following frame. Next, we find the closest neighbor to the original query point and mark it as the new query point for this frame. We continue this process iteratively for all frames. Here are a few examples of T-patches extracted from the DFAUST dataset. The T-patches are color-coded in blue, green, cyan, and pink, and represent a small subset of all patches extracted for these dynamic shapes. Now that we have the T-patches extracted, the remaining question is how do we learn spatio-temporal representation for them? We propose a hierarchical structure composed of several T-patch modules. At the high level, an input point cloud sequence is fed into several consecutive T-patch modules that extract T-patches and compute a per-frame spatio-temporal representation by pulling over all T-patch features. This representation is then used within a classifier to output an action prediction per frame. In more detail, each T-patch module first extracts T-patches using a naive k-nearest neighbors search. Each T-patch is then fed into a network to learn a per-frame T-patch level features. These features, along with the T-patch point subset, is then output and used in the next T-patch module until the final module that pulls over them. The final classifier is modeled as several fully connected layers. We evaluate the performance of our method on several 3D action recognition datasets. This table shows that we achieve state-of-the-art results on the DFAUST dataset. We also achieve state-of-the-art results on the IKEA ASM dataset, but clearly for this dataset there is much more work to be done. This is because this dataset is very challenging because of the noise, the complexity of the actions, and the size of the scenes that include many distractors. What we found most interesting is visualizing the gradient magnitude on the point clouds using GradCam. It highlights where the network is focusing. For jumping jacks, it mostly focuses on the hands and a little bit on the feet. For the knee movement, it focuses on the knee, and for the circular hip motion, on the pelvis area. In summary, in this work, we introduce a novel representation for dynamically evolving local point cloud sets termed T-patches. Additionally, we introduced a hierarchical architecture that produces an informative spatio-temporal representation for sequences of point clouds. We would like to thank and acknowledge the financial support from the EU Marie Curie Fellowship that funded this line of research. We also thank the hardware grant support received from NVIDIA. Thank you for listening. The code is publicly available. Please check out the project website and the paper for further details.